All right. Peace and greetings, YouTubers. So normally I don't do response videos to national tragedies like a mass shooting, mainly because there's so many of them that happen anyway. It'd be like we'd be here every day doing a video. But I think because those who are subscribed to me have kind of a certain level of expectation of what they expect me to kind of say something about. And because you're seeing a trend with the origin of where these shootings originate as far as them going and attacking marginalized groups of people. You know, you see them going after groups of black people. You see them going after those in the Latino community. You see them going after those who are Muslim. You see them going after those who are Arab. You see them going after pretty much anybody who's not white. And really what I'm talking about these white supremacist type shooters. You know, I definitely want to say my 2 cents. However, before I get into that, I do want to say condolences to everybody who has been directly and indirectly affected by these shootings. And when I say indirectly, it doesn't even have to mean that somebody you knew got shot. It just means the fact that you know that your very existence pisses somebody off so much to the point that they want to go kill other people. I'm sorry that you have to experience that. I mean, that burden of apology is not on me because I'm also a victim of that system because, hell, my existence pisses somebody off as well. Somebody right now watching this video wishes they could probably meet me in the back alley. It is what it is. But, you know, what I do want to say is I think we have to pay attention to who are the people that we continue to support in office, who are the people that we continue to elect, because a lot of these politicians, they will give you the verbiage and the presentation and make you feel that they really care about you, but they really don't. They're not in it for the well-being of the people. A lot of these politicians are so bought out. All it takes is $1 and you can forget about them doing anything that works to your benefit. And so what I found hilarious this week in response to everything that's been happening, you know, the politicians have been getting cooked a lot because always, and even some of the public figures, every time there was a national tragedy like a mass shooting, it was thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers. You know, what do you have to say about the kids and the first graders that got shot at the school the other day? Thoughts and prayers. What do you have to say about that movie theater? Thoughts and prayers. What do you have to say about the black folks who did Bible study with that white kid and invited him and fed him and sang with him and then he shot them all? Thoughts and prayers. What do you have to say about the people who shot the mosque? Thoughts and prayers. What do you got to say about the people who shot? Thoughts and prayers, shots and prayers for some, because some of them are so backed by the NRA, they're not going to change anything because, you know, that they don't want to mess up their money flow. Their cash flow is too good. So, yeah, thoughts and prayers, shots and prayers in reality. And so you're seeing a lot of that. But lately, because so many are getting cooked about the thoughts and prayers, now the verbiage and the response that you're seeing, it's almost like one of those Hallmark cards you get, like when your dog dies or something. You know, this is a tragedy that is just so hard to witness, and we have to come together and come into a space of love and a this, that, and a third. And I'm like, you know, that's very nice. However, when I look at your voting record, when I look at the bills that you put into play, all of your bills are oppressive. And especially the politicians who are like, oh, and we have to fight white supremacy and white nationalism. And I'm like, a lot of the policy you endorse, a lot of the people you support, a lot of the politicians and people up top you enable, a lot of everything that you align yourself with is rooted in white supremacy, is rooted in the oppression of other groups of people. So save the symbolism speech because you're full of crap. So just, you know, keep an eye out with some of these politicians because I haven't seen some folks, I was like, the nerve. Oh, you think we're stupid. But, you know, let me get to my main point. But what you're seeing now, you're seeing an influx of mass shootings that are rooted in white anger and white fear from white supremacists. And I also want to say this because there's going to be people who are butthurt about what I say and they're going to jump in the comment section and not all white people, Listen, if you don't fit the description of what I'm talking about, then clearly the conversation is not about you. But that's another element of privilege we come into is where some people center themselves in everything. And even when you're addressing an issue that has nothing to do with them from an individualistic standpoint, and we're talking about a structural conversation, they have to center themselves around it. That's another conversation to have another day. So yes, if that's not you, then you should be losing sleep, because I'm not going to lose sleep after I upload this video. I'm going to go to sleep and sleep real good tonight. You get pissed off in the comment section if you want to. Anyway, what you're seeing right now is you see a lot of white supremacists who have this fear. They fear that they're losing the country. They fear that they're losing everything. They fear that what they've worked so hard for is being taken away from them by people who are not deserving. And it's the funniest thing because when you look at just the dynamics of how this country is currently operating, it's like, okay, you have a racist president, a racist administration, a racist judicial system. The Supreme Court ain't really that progressive in my opinion. Even the ones who do tend to lean to the left, they still have voted and supported many racist policies. The school systems are racist. The media is racist with how people are presented in the media. The news media is also racist in my opinion. Even the news media that's left-wing tends to be racist with how they address certain things. The history of this country, both past, present, and future, all of it, still racist. You know, pretty much everything, anything you can think of with how the healthcare system, in my opinion, is racist. The way that the cities are structured when it comes to housing is racist. The way, you know, the socioeconomic wealth gaps that we see, you're seeing the racism in all of it. And I'm like, well, what exactly did y'all lose? Because everything's still working in your favor collectively. But we'll get to it in a second. And so you're seeing what I like to call punitive entitlement. And I think I talked about it in another video, but my definition of punitive entitlement means where there's somebody who feels that something is theirs, and because they feel that they no longer have the same access to it, or they don't have access to it, everybody else has to suffer at their expense because they're the ones who want to call the shots. And in this case, you're seeing it with these mass shootings. So you saw the individual, and I'm going to kind of base this entire video around the shooting in El Paso, mainly because the individual decided to drive 9 hours, yes, 9 hours, to go and shoot up some Latinos at Walmart because he felt that, the border issue, they're coming in here, they're wild, and they're taking everything, and they're going to run the country soon, because they had a whole manifesto, or he had a whole manifesto where he wrote all this stuff. I'm not going to start quoting anything from it, because I know there's some weird people who will go and read it and then endorse all those viewpoints and be ready to go out and shoot up an IHOP the next day. But yeah, this man had that much anger in his heart. 9 hours. Like, picture you drive 9 hours to go kill some folks. Like, me and my friends, when we get together, and we decide we want to go somewhere in DC, I don't know, we're going to go to U Street. After 10 minutes, if I don't find parking, I'm going back home, because I don't have that kind of time. So imagine driving 9 hours to go spray some people out of Walmart. Like, you eventually had to stop for gas. You probably had to stop for food. And at no point in time during any of those moments, nothing clicked where it's like, wait a minute, I'm doing a lot. Let me go back home and reevaluate myself. I don't know what to do. And I guess the reason I'm staying on this idea of white supremacy and racism is because every time somebody white goes and shoots up one of these establishments, it's always like, let's have a conversation about mental health. Yeah, there's a conversation about mental health, but let's talk about the origins of why that mental health issue arose. It's racism. So, because, again, if a black person goes and does the same thing, then, we need to lock up the thugs, and we need to definitely increase the prison, this, that, and the third. If it's somebody Latino, you need to build the wall. If it's somebody Muslim, you need to have the terror, no-fly list. If it's somebody who's not white, then it's a national crisis. We need to do something, and then gun purchases go up that same week as well, all right? True story, by the way. One of the funniest bits is, the 2 days where the most gun purchases were ever made were November 4th, 2008, November 6th, 2012. Take a guess at why. Anyway, but going back to my point, punitive entitlement. So you have people who feel that because they think they're losing the country, other people have to suffer. And that extremity for them is going and killing other people. And sometimes it doesn't even get to that. Sometimes if you're talking about the workplace or in a neighborhood, there's things or there's microaggressions that a lot of people who have white supremacist views will do. So, like if there's a neighborhood in the suburbs that has a basketball hoop, and I've talked about this before in a couple of videos, and, too many black kids start hanging on that hoop. Too many black kids from other neighborhoods start coming to that neighborhood to play on that hoop. Guess what happens to that basketball hoop? It disappears. That element of we don't want you in the neighborhood, so we're just going to get rid of the whole hoop and nobody's going to get to play. That includes the other white kids that might have wanted to play on the hoop as well. You can't play on it now. We just got rid of it because we don't want them up in here. That's that whole, punitive entitlement. And you see it in so many realms. You even see it with the voting patterns, but I'm going to come back to that in a second. And so you have this element of people who are fearful. They think they're losing everything. And I think really what it is, it's a fear of mediocrity. But when I look at society today, when I look at America, to me, I think America is in this position where they're kind of like in that transition, a transition that you see offices make. I'd like to use the analogy of the office transition, where you have the office and the office decides they're going to introduce and implement some new programming. They're going to introduce, a new email system, some new ways to do different things. They're going to change how they do everything because they want to adjust with the times. They want to adjust with the new technologies that are out. They want to adjust with how the world around them is operating. They want to adjust with what their competition is doing. And then you have one of two things happen. You have those who have been grandfathered into the system that was already into play, and this is the good old boys club. These are the people, I've been here for 20 years, this is how I'm going to do it, I'm not changing anything. And they sit all with their arms folded and pissed off, and they're not going to no new workshops, they're not doing anything new, they're going to do things exactly the way that they did it, because that's how they did it, they ain't changing nothing, the rest of y'all are crazy. And then you have the other folks, who usually tend to be newer, and sometimes it's some of them same grandfathered ones, but these are the folks who are like, okay, I'm excited about this. I'm going to go to the workshops. I'm going to go to the trainings. I'm even willing to take a pay cut and take a position that pays less because in the long run, it's going to lead to a greater outcome. I might be in a position where I get to train, or I'm in a position where I'm in charge of people. And so these are the people who invest in themselves, who invest in what they believe in, who put the time in, who put in the work. And then when you fast forward 20 years, let's just say the company goes through a shift. They're getting rid of the department that is outdated and no longer relevant. That's the department where all of the grandfathered folks who didn't want to change because they're sorry, I've been doing it for 20 years and everything like that, their department is going, they snip, snip, it's gone. So now these same folks have to go and reapply for a new position in the company, but they no longer have the skills. They don't meet the qualifications because they didn't go to them workshops. They didn't go to the trainings. They didn't take the time to put in the work. They didn't, they just pretty much, they got comfortable in mediocrity. They got saturated in it. They thought they would always be backed by the system and those in the office who loved them, that they would never have to worry about anything. And so now you fast forward to when that company gets rid of that department, and guess who's in charge of them now? Yeah, maybe they might get a new job in the company, but it's not going to be one of them top-notch positions. Now they're under all those people who came in after them. They're under all those people who went and put in the work. And that's so symbolic of America today. You have a lot of white Americans who didn't invest in themselves. They didn't invest in working to make things better for themselves and also everybody else, because they recognized that they were backed by white supremacy. They recognized that there was a system to always keep them on top. Toni Morrison has a great quote where she says something like, if you're only tall because other people are on their knees, then you have a serious problem. And then she goes on to say pretty much why she believes a lot of white America has a serious problem. And I think that's what you're seeing. Today, what you're seeing right now is the fear of mediocrity, because a lot of white supremacists recognize that without white supremacy to back them, a lot of these people are just ordinary. And a lot of them are mediocre. They have no skills. There's nothing that they can actually do that will get them to where they want to be. They see a lot of people getting wealthy and they see a lot of people getting rich. And they also align themselves with those in the elite class. And they feel that because they share the same skin with those in the elite class, I'm talking the 1%, the top 5% and all of that, they feel that they're privy to whatever those people have because they share the same skin. However, they forget that those up top created a system when we get into the 20th century and even the end of the 19th century where pretty much they recognize that if they can create the idea of race as a social construct and make sure that certain groups stay below other people, folks will always work against themselves. The elite will continue to climb and everybody else at the bottom will just fight. And so now what you're seeing is a lot of these white supremacists continue to fight at the bottom. And the white supremacists who enable them, who are a part of those top classes, the Donald Trumps, and even these people in Congress who enable all of that, they enable all of that because it still benefits them. They don't have to do all the fighting in the trenches. They let the other people do it. And while those people do it and continue to vote and put them into positions of power, they benefit. But these people still at the bottom, these white supremacists who have nothing tangible to show for all the oppression that they've endorsed and supported amongst other people, they still feel that eventually they're going to get to where these people are. And when it sinks in that that's not going to happen, and at the same time they spent so much time trying to tear down everybody else, and that tearing down only motivated and built other people to be stronger to climb, and some of those people are now surpassing them when it comes to socioeconomic wealth, they are losing their minds. That's exactly what that's about. I'm going to quote this Lyndon B. Johnson quote that I always reference a lot of times, and he says, and I'm only using it because he's a president and it makes my argument even more valid. He says, "I'll tell you what's at the bottom of it. If you can convince the lowest white man he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you're picking his pocket. Hell, give him somebody to look down on and he'll empty his pockets for you." And that's pretty much what you've seen happen. Pretty much. And when we talk about voting patterns, 44% of the voter electorate in this country are working class white Americans. And unfortunately, when you look at their voting patterns, a lot of them, and I'm not going to say everybody who's in that demographic is racist and they're all about the oppressions of other people, but when you look at the voting patterns and the people that they put in office, they run and they rally behind these politicians and these public figures who say, oh, we're going to cut entitlement programs, we're going to cut welfare, we're going to get rid of affirmative action, we're going to cut Pell Grants, we're going to cut food stamps, we're going to make sure we lock up more people, we're going to put more police on the street, we're going to give more funding to the military, and we're going to cut education, we're going to cut healthcare, we're going to cut science and research to make sure that your grandkids still have a planet to live on. They vote against all of that because they recognize that the demographics of people who are going to suffer the most tend to be black folks, tend to be those who are the Latino community and everybody else. But the bit about it that's entertaining is they're also in that same group that's going to be affected by that. However, because they recognize that they have one thing that still puts them over, they're okay with it, because when it comes to white supremacy, there's a balance of the system. White supremacy does not give everybody economic prosperity who's white. It doesn't. However, the privilege that exists still gives them the idea that they feel that they're over somebody, that they feel that they're superior. So even these people who will vote against all of the policy that benefits them, because it's so funny to watch poor people vote to continue to be poor. I'm like, how? What? Okay, you're voting against the idea of HUD because you think people need to pull themselves up by the bootstrap. They need to work harder. And you're in the same socioeconomic bubble as them. But your idea is because at least I ain't black, I'm still better than you. So you know what? We can both be at the bottom, but at the end of the day, I'm still going to be white. And so you have a lot of white supremacists who have those viewpoints. And so they'll vote against themselves. Yeah, sure, they don't care. As long as you're still beneath them. All right? And so now that's what you're starting to see. And it's the most, it's just the most bamboozling aspect. But don't be fooled. It's just not working class poor white Americans, because it's still the rich and it's everybody else up top too. Because like I said, as long as that system is in place and as long as that continues to disenfranchise other groups of people, they continue to stay at the top. You know, I always said if Donald Trump wasn't a billionaire, he would have never been president. If he was some random Joe from Iowa somewhere who had a farm, he would have not been president. But so many people saw his wealth as a gateway to wealth, as you know, an access to wealth, an access to money. It was the gateway to prosperity. They just saw that. They didn't realize that just because they both share white skin with Trump, that doesn't mean they're going to get what he has. You know, because even his wealth comes at the expense of other people. And so, you know, that's what you're seeing when you're talking about white supremacists. So a lot of these people are recognizing that, okay, we're kind of in danger because, and not in danger physically, but in danger as far as prosperity, because other groups of people are starting to do better than them, not as a collective, but as individuals. And because there's enough individuals of different races, specifically black folks, the Latinos, the Asians, everybody like that, that pisses them off. When you find out that the largest demographic of people, or the people who are the most educated in this country, are black women, and I'm talking college educated, stuff like that pisses them off, because it's like, how did you climb that? You're not supposed to be there. I am. What the heck? And so it goes back to that aspect. While black folks had to live under slavery and Jim Crow and all of the oppressions that happened to us, and other groups of people had to do, you know, Lord knows what to just survive, you know, that element of working to be, you know, twice as good just to be considered half as worthy, or working twice as hard to be considered half as good, that backing is embedded in a lot of marginalized groups of people. And so they have the work ethic. It's symbolic of what I said about that office. These are those people in the office who were willing to go to the workshops, willing to go to the trainings, willing to do everything like that. It's symbolic of that. And because you're starting to see people put in the work to get to where they want to be, and they're working smart, and they don't have a system to back them, they literally have their own integrity, their skills, and qualifications to get them to where they want to go. On the contrast, those who have spent all their life wanting to just be racist and make sure other people are beneath them, they forgot to invest in themselves. And so even though the white supremacy ship is sailing and it is what it is, they have nothing else to show for their time on this earth. Their lineage doesn't get them anywhere. You know, nothing pisses off a white supremacist more to recognize that, okay, there was an entire system in place to make sure that I could be up here. So when they're level with somebody like a black person who had that same system work against them to keep them down, and now they're right here economically, oh no, that means this system's not working. I'm pissed off. I need to go do something about this, because this person here is trying to take what's mine. I didn't put in the work, but this person's taking what's mine. I need to go shoot up a church. You know, I need to go shoot up the mosque. I need to go shoot up because we're losing the country. That's what you're seeing happen. You know, I always say, like, white privilege is almost like, or I'll stick with white supremacy for a second. It's all the same anyway. It's like a cruise ship. You know, white supremacy and privilege to me is the cruise ship that has all the amenities. They got the good shrimp. I mean, I don't know, the Disney characters are on there. So Mickey Mouse and Minnie are over there twerking next to the DJ booth. Barbara Streisand flies in on a helicopter and she performs some of the stuff she used to perform at the Copacabana. And, you know, they got the pool. They have the luxury suite. Everything is together. And then black folks and all the other groups of people, they didn't get them same resources. They just got just enough to get across to wherever they needed to go. So these folks here always had to spend, you know, pretty much spend all their time just trying to make sure that they could make it. These folks here have been coddled. They riding on a good ship. Everything is great. Storm comes. The cruise ship. They spent so much time investing in all the benefits that they forgot to make sure that the groundwork and the foundation for their ship would be able to manage through a storm. Black folks, we can manage through any kind of hard time. You know, every presidential administration has never made it an effort to make sure that black folks would be okay. And black folks have always gotten the bottom of the barrel, and black folks continue to be just fine. We're not going out as a collective spraying everybody every time we think we're losing something. And you're seeing that with the other groups as well. However, the folks on this ship, storm hits, the ship ain't built right. Ship capsizes. Everybody got to die. Or they got to start swimming. What do? They go and they swim to the boats of the other people that they thought were beneath them. And then they get on these boats and then they start trying to call the shots. Gentrification. You know what? That's just like the Titanic in real life if we want to talk about symbolism. You know what I mean? You know, the Titanic was supposed to be this great cruise liner, the largest one in the world, you know, the best of the best, the unsinkable. This was going to be the top-notch cruise with all the nicest amenities, and only the wealthy could get on here. The top-notch folks could really get, access to all the amenities. The poor people, if you had enough money to get on the ship, you can come, but you're going to be in third class. If you're Latino, don't worry about getting on unless you plan on mopping the ship. If you black, you already know you ain't getting on, so y'all might as well stay in whatever little cottage y'all in, because the nerve of you to even think that you was going to get on this ship. And they do all that, and they spend all this time investing in all the riches and the wealth and everything, and they don't pay attention to the foundation of the ship. And what happens? Ship hits one iceberg. On the first trip, whole ship goes down. I'm like, on the first trip, like, all this greatness. And so to me, that's Titanic is so symbolic of the structure of white supremacy. If white supremacy doesn't have that backing, then a lot of people are going to suffer under that element of not having the skill set to survive in this ever-changing world. And that scares a lot of people. That's that element of fear, because really what you're seeing is white supremacists are afraid of the idea of having to be like everybody else. Because like I said, they recognize without that system to back them, without the idea of being superior, they're ordinary like the rest of us. And they don't want to be like the rest of us because they think they're above the rest of us. And that freaks them out. It reminds me of the movie Higher Learning, that John Singleton film. There's a scene in it where you have Michael Rappaport's character, and he's a white student, and he's in the classroom. And he starts looking around, and he sees like the Asian student, he sees the Latino student, he sees the student from the Middle East, he sees the black student, he sees all these groups of people, or all these people who are not white, and it pisses him off. And I think he storms out, and then he goes back to his little group, because they had like a group of like white supremacist students who were mad at the world because they didn't like that it was changing. And so the bit that I wonder if people ever caught on to is, I always looked at the irony of that scene. He was so busy worried about trying to make sure other people were beneath him that he didn't put in the work. So he was the only one in the library not working. The Asian girl was reading her book. The black dude had his notes. The guy that was from the Middle East was doing his thing. This person was going through contact notes and cliff notes and everything. He's the only one sitting there being mediocre, not putting in the work. And then he wants to have a temper tantrum and go storm out. Then he shot Tyra Banks in the movie. I'm still mad about that. But I think that's so symbolic. So when you keep seeing these white supremacists going out and shooting and killing people, and even if it's the ones who are not going and shooting people, but they enable it, they endorse the language, because how these people feel is how a lot of folks feel. They just don't have the guts to go and shoot people, so they do it other ways. They use microaggressions in the workplace. They continue to vote for oppressive politicians who will make sure that other groups of people stay beneath them. That's all of that, because it goes back to what I said earlier. A lot of them recognize that if marginalized groups of people were given the same opportunity, and those opportunities were also backed by resources, then it's going to be a more competitive playing field. It kind of goes back to my analogy with The Office. Those folks in that first group who were grandfathered in, they got used to being comfortable. They got used to never having to challenge themselves. They got used to never having to go above and beyond because they found their pocket and they were comfortable. And as change came, it made them have to get uncomfortable. It made them have to step outside of the box. It made them have to do a little bit more work, and they chose not to. And because they didn't, they got left in the dust. So now when we fast forward, you have a lot of people who are white supremacists who feel that they're being left in the dust. They feel like this country is leaving them, and they feel that this country is rightfully theirs. Even though at the end of the day, they didn't build it because that was black folks. They didn't work to maintain it because that was black folks and Latinos. Pretty much, there's just a whole lot of entitlement. And so when we talk about that punitive entitlement, that's what you're seeing. And the reason I spent so much time focusing on white supremacy and that aspect is because you're going to keep seeing more of this happen, unfortunately. And they're going to keep trying to say, oh, it's just mental health. And I do think there is a conversation about guns as well. Yes, definitely. However, the real bit is we need to look at the mindsets that these people have. Yes, you can talk mental health, but what is the origins of where that mental issue comes from? It's the idea of racism, the idea of recognizing that as the world changes, if they don't align with things, they don't know what's next for them. And that's freaking them out. And it's kind of, it's depressing to witness, because it's like, man, just all you got to do is earn your keep. Y'all told us to pull ourselves up by the bootstrap. Pull yourself up. That's what I want to say. Pull yourself up by the bootstrap. And again, this isn't even just about economics. Because really, like I said before, when you talk the wealth gap, when you talk all of that, white folks still call all the shots and all that. And it's interesting also with the aspect of a lot of them have the fear of being a minority in this country. And I'm always like, even when white folks become the minority in this country, white folks will still take charge of the power structure. Everything will still be exactly as it is. Just because there will be more people who are black and brown does not mean much is going to change, because that power structure is so locked in. It's backed by so many resources that people who are black and people who are Latino and people who are Asian don't have, even though I think those who are Asian are in a different category, to be honest. And so it's just interesting to see. My biggest fear, or not even a fear, I know people are always like, oh, well, we need to get Trump out of there. And I'm like, I agree, but I'm like, you haven't seen crazy yet. Let them kick Trump out of office. Let him end up out of office because he didn't resign or he didn't lose. Let him get impeached. Let him, whatever happens, let something magically happen to him. You're going to see a wave of white rage All right, because that's the element. Fear and rage are two dangerous things, especially when you have entitlement behind it and the idea of white supremacy. And so that's where we're at. It sucks. It's a tough conversation. It's a conversation that people don't like to have. This would probably be one of my more disliked videos, but it is what it is. Again, when you look at this guy that shot up the Walmart in El Paso, what was he, 21? He hadn't even started living yet, but he was already sold on the fact that he was going to be locked out of everything. Like, boy, what a world we live in, right? Anyway, share your 2 cents, subscribe. I don't know what else to say. I think we're going... Actually, I'll share it with you guys later. Anyway, I'm out. Subscribe.